Antonín Dvořák was a composer of the Romantic era. He was born near Prague in 1841 and soon made a name for himself as a musician and composer. Today, we're going to look at his time spent in the United States. From 1892 to 1895, Dvořák was the director of the National Conservatory of Music in New York City. The conservatory was founded by wealthy philanthropist Jeanette Thurber with the intention of establishing an American style of music and musician. In that spirit, she invited Dvořák to come to the United States and help establish this American school of music. His Ninth Symphony was written in the first year that Dvořák was in the United States. The main idea behind this symphony was to use African American and Native American music as inspiration, much like how Dvořák and other composers had used European folk music as a basis for their compositions. Dvořák wanted to use those elements because he wanted to write something that would become what he called an American school of composition. Think about how Franz Liszt used Hungarian folk music in his Rhapsodies, or how Chopin used the traditional Polish dance mazurka in his compositions. Dvořák wanted to try the same thing with traditional American folk music, and he saw American folk music as being Native American and African American music. There seems to be a bit of confusion about how Dvořák was going to write this piece. To Dvořák, he was just using the Native American and African American spirituals as inspiration to write his own melodies that would have the same spirit or essence. However, some critics and composers at the time thought that he was just going to steal the Native American and African American music and use it in his orchestration. So, I think he got some undue criticism on that point because he wasn't blatantly stealing the melodies to use in his music. However, we'll see in a little bit that he comes very close with one of his themes to an existing African American spiritual. There is concrete evidence that Dvořák came into contact with African American songs, namely because of this American musician, Harry T. Burleigh. Burleigh was a student at the National Conservatory of Music while Dvořák was the director there, and would often sing African American spirituals for the composer. There is less evidence that Dvořák had direct contact with Native American music. He wrote the symphony between January and May of 1893 in New York City, and it was only in June of 1893 that he traveled westward to Spillville, Iowa to spend the summer. The idea here is that there was much less Native American representation in New York City at the time than there would have been on his travels westward. This also coincided with the World's Fair being held in Chicago, Illinois, where many different cultural exhibits were on display, including Native American. However, Dvořák was quoted in the New York Herald saying, "I carefully studied a certain number of Indian melodies which a friend gave me, and was truly intrigued by their characteristic traits, imbued with their spirit, in fact." So, Dvořák had seen some of these melodies on paper, but may not have seen them performed live. Let's take a closer look at the symphony itself. It's structured like a typical symphony with 4 movements, and a performance of the entire symphony lasts about 40 minutes. The piece is written for a large ensemble orchestra, including woodwinds, brass, strings, and percussion. Now let's look at some of the main themes you'll hear in the piece. First, in the opening movement, you'll hear the French horns play this melody. Followed by bassoon and clarinets with this response. It's interesting because it's so simple. It's basically an outline of an E minor chord and a C major chord. After this first theme gets passed around the orchestra a little bit, you'll hear the flute and oboe play this next theme. Again, it's a very simple melody in G minor with a lowered 7th. It's not making any large interval jumps, and it stays within a very short range. The rhythm is also simple. It's all duple subdivisions. This melody as well gets passed around in the different instruments until we get to the last main theme. The last main theme in this first movement is introduced by a solo flute, and it sounds like this. Now, this is the melody that bears a striking resemblance to an existing African American spiritual called Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. You can tell that the second bar in Swing Low, Sweet Chariot lines up with Dvorak's theme. And the next ascending line is a different rhythm, but they're the same notes as Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, going up in those thirds. Now, if this was intentional or not is hard to say. You have the composer being quoted as saying he's taking inspiration from African American spirituals, and then you have this melodic line that looks a lot like Swing Low, Sweet Chariot in the first half, but then he takes it in a different direction in the second half. This brings us to the second movement. The only thing you need to know about this movement is that it has the most beautiful melody ever written for an English horn. My synthesizer will not do it any sort of justice, but it sounds a little bit like this. One interesting note about this solo was that it was originally written for the clarinet, but Dvorak changed it to the English horn because it had a quality to it that reminded him of Harry T. Burleigh's voice. In the third movement, the two main themes I see here are this short staccato line, which kind of reminds me of John Williams' Duel of the Fates from The Phantom Menace. Then there's this slower, more laid-back melody that comes in. This movement is written in 3/4, so when it's not driving forward with that syncopated rhythm and slows down a bit into that 1-2-3, 1-2-3 pattern, it sounds like a nice waltz. The last movement starts out like another well-known John Williams score about a shark. Before introducing this monster of a melody with a huge, loud brass section. There are other thematic ideas that Dvorak introduces in this movement, but this one stands out to me whenever I listen to it. You will also hear Dvorak bring back thematic material from the 3 previous movements as well. There's a lot going on in this symphony, and these are just the highlights. So I hope you get a chance to listen to the entire symphony to hear it for yourself. I'll link to some of my favorite performances in the description below. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you'd like to help support this channel and help me make more videos like this, check out the Patreon link below. And again, thank you.